So the Raptors close out their postseason with an ugly loss and a pretty flattering scoreline, only losing by 12 points to the Miami Heat. Despite Kyle Lowry really lighting it up in his return to action, the Raptors really need to face some ugly truths. Let's get into it. Welcome to Amateur Sports. If it is your first time on the channel, this is where we give you NBA content with a focus on the Toronto Raptors at least 4 days a week. We either find some news to talk about where I give my opinion in this vlog or video podcast style format, or if there's a game happening, we do a game recap, typically the day after the game. Talk about what went on, what needs to improve, and just things we saw from the game. Thank you so much for joining me today. If it is your first time here with me today and you like what you see, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join the movement of the channel. We're talking today about the Raptors game against the Miami Heat. It ended 117-105. The Raptors were not great throughout the entire game, kept it close up until about the end of the third quarter where it started to pull away. Before we get started on the Raptors part of it, just quick shout out to Miami's guys, Kezzy Okpala, Max Struss, and Precious Achiuwa. I thought they were all phenomenal in the game. All three of them going into their first season getting real minutes with this NBA franchise, and I think they played themselves into a role yesterday. All three of them were great, and the Raptors really didn't have much answer, and they didn't play well, but shout out to those guys. Now let's get into the Raptors part of the game. Kyle Lowry comes out really well. You know, Kyle Lowry had a great game. And some other guys really didn't quite fit up to that standard. Kyle Lowry really tried to lead by example in that game. It just wasn't quite happening for the Raptors, I thought. Overall, they were decent on ball movement on offense, but on defense, they were really uncharacteristically bad. Now, let's go through a bit of a synopsis for the game, and then after that, we'll get into what we learned from the game. So let's get right into the first quarter. Kyle Lowry comes out the gates with this soaring confidence. He comes out super confident, shooting threes, hitting threes, and Kyle Lowry was doing really well. And then it started to trend towards, okay, everybody's shooting threes. Okay, everybody's only shooting threes. We were taking way too many threes. I noticed this within the first 6 minutes of the first quarter. We were living and dying by the three, and our defense was slow in transition. And after shooting threes, where there's a big rebound, the Miami Heat can really push the ball in transition. It's going to be a bit of a problem. The Raptors struggled in transition on defense, I think, against the Charlotte Hornets in both games, and they were still struggling with it against the Miami Heat last night. Once we were set on defense in a half-court situation, you know, we were playing some high-risk, high-reward defense, really trying to cut off angles, trying to intercept passes, get those steals. And when we did, we were great on transition and offense. We were great. We pushed the ball, we got to the rim, we got our points. We had, I think, 11 points off turnovers in the first quarter. But I noticed the only way we were getting to the rim to get points was in transition. The Raptors in the half court had a distinct inability to get to the rim, get their easy buckets, and they were only shooting threes, and this trended throughout the entire game. We were really struggling in the half court to really create any offense. And then we get to the second quarter. Boucher comes out on fire, hits a couple threes, or was it 3 threes in a short period of time, really putting us back in the game, giving us some momentum for the game. Boucher was great on offense, and I think he was great on defense, getting blocks, causing disruptions. You know, Boucher really looks like a guy who's going to be a contributor throughout this season. Transition offense was still great, but defense as a whole was bad. It was just straight up bad. You know, in transition, guys weren't hustling back quick enough. They weren't getting set quick enough. And even when we were set, there was a lot of miscommunications on rotations, miscommunications on who people were covering, whose responsibility was what position, because backdoor cuts were absolutely killing us. Miami were just getting wide open looks at the rim because the Raptors defense, each guy wouldn't stay with their guy. It was so frustrating to watch Miami get these easy looks at the rim, and the Raptors have to really scrap and fight for any sort of look at the rim. Miami were getting them super easily, and it helped that guys like Kezzy Okpala and Max Struss were just lights out from three. It was ridiculous the shots those guys were hitting. I don't think that's going to carry over for the whole season. Those guys, I think, had just this magical game together, but still, those guys were hitting their shots, and the Raptors could not deal with it. Siakam was really struggling down low as well. And, you know, when you need a guy to take you out of that rut where you're not getting points to the rim, and Siakam was not doing it, it was a problem. Then, all of a sudden, he was hitting these ridiculously difficult shots from three. So, You don't get the easy shots with Siakam, but you get these ridiculously hard shots, and that is not sustainable. Bembry was pretty slow on his rotations on defense. I thought a lot of the time he was reactionary instead of being proactive on defense. Other guys, it's preseason. Bembry isn't too familiar with the Raptors defensive rotation, so he's learning. However, it looks like he has a main role in this rotation for the Raptors, and I thought that anytime there was really a player scrambling to get to their check because they missed a rotation, it was often DeAndre Bembry. And again, it's preseason, it's fine. Hopefully they fix that for the regular season, but that is something to take note of. I thought that he was really struggling with the rotations, and it wasn't just him. Other guys, there were some examples where other guys were also not getting the rotations down correctly. Now, despite all that, despite not a great half, we close out the half very well, and we're in a game. I think it's a 2-point game at the end of the first half. And I noticed Malachi Flynn, who was phenomenal in both games against Charlotte, has not touched the floor yet, and I have no idea why. We get into the second half, and I thought defense would pick up, and it didn't. It was still slow. We were still letting those backdoor cuts happen. Those are so annoying to watch. Offense did start to look better. Kyle Lowry really grabbed the team by the scruff of the neck and went, okay, that's not good enough. We got to be better. He was making things happen. He was hitting threes. He was making plays. He was drawing fouls, hustling all over the court, getting stuff to the rim. Finally, just willing the team back to a better standard. Kyle Lowry was on fire yesterday. I think he had 25 points. Kyle Lowry looked great. Kyle Lowry looked like he was back in that postseason form, and I was really hoping that he wouldn't start to struggle because this is his first game back, but he was on fire. Excited to see Kyle Lowry in action against New Orleans. Siakam did start to get better as the game wore on, but then the starters came out and the bench went in. And the bench, who was great against Charlotte, and who's always been great for the Raptors, the bench really did not play well in this game against the Miami Heat. We were really starting to struggle to get to the rim, and nothing was happening on offense at the end of the third quarter, and that carried over into the fourth quarter. They took 59 threes. The Raptors took 59 threes in that game. 59 threes. They only took 92 shots. 59 of them were three-pointers. That is not okay. That is not sustainable basketball. That cannot happen in the regular season. They really need to fix that. There's some things like, Bembry missing rotations. You work on that. That's not a big deal. Shooting 59 threes and failing to get to the rim, that is a problem. That is a problem. So Miami start to pull away. Then we get to the fourth. Finally, Malachi Flynn comes in. But this is where the offense goes frozen. The three-point shooting was complete garbage. It was garbage. They didn't get a point, I don't think, for the first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. And Miami were still doing fine. Paulo was hitting shots. Struss was hitting shots. Precious Achiuwa came in and was tearing up the Raptors on the interior. Their height, or lack thereof for the Raptors, was glaring in this game. There were situations where Norman Powell was playing in the power forward spot. There was a lot of situations where Siakam and OG Anunoby had to play as the front court, which could work in some situations, but the Miami Heat were beating us up with their bigs, so it didn't really make any sense. And like I said, the Raptors were living and dying by the three. Well, they died. They died by the three in the fourth quarter. One thing that did happen halfway through is that Malachi Flynn started to make things happen. In fact, in that 1 quarter of action, only playing in the fourth quarter, registered 5 assists. So I think Malachi Flynn needs to be in the key rotation for the Raptors. It didn't look like he was in that game. I hope that he played himself into a spot, a role player with the game, because I think that he's a creative player who can make things happen, gives us a different perspective on offense, and I think we need to see him in the NBA. So that's it for the game synopsis. Let's get into what we learned. Well, what we learned is that the Raptors seriously struggled at creating good high percentage opportunities at the rim. They really had to force things at the rim. Pascal Siakam, a guy who did that very often, trying to back down 2 defenders and take a hook over both those defenders. But when he shot from 3, he was actually starting to hit his shots. The Raptors in transition looked great on offense, but in the half court, bad. So full court offense, great. The half court offense was not so good. They weren't creating good opportunities for themselves. They had to hit some miraculous threes at times to actually get something out of those possessions. We also learned that Kyle Lowry is, back in his regular form. He is back in postseason form, and it is great to see that he won't need an adjustment period. It looks like he's going to come into the NBA absolutely firing. We also learned that Malachi Flynn needs to have a role in this team. He came in, he made things happen, started shooting the ball a bit better than the rest of the guys, started putting up assists. He was creating plays, disrupting play on defense. He's a great defender. He is a great defender. This looks like an absolute steal at 29th overall. He is a great defender, a great facilitator, just a pure point guard who has a nice shooting stroke from three. I love what I see from Malachi Flynn. And we also saw that height makes us vulnerable. We really struggle with height. And Miami, who aren't even the biggest team, playing Bam Adebayo at the 5, the Raptors seriously had problems dealing with height. Like, when the bench comes in, I feel like Alex Len needed a bigger role in that game because we were just getting dominated on the interior. And Precious Achiuwa took advantage with 15 rebounds in the game, and he didn't get a ton of play time either. So what the great thing about this game was, it was a preseason game, and the Raptors can really look at themselves in the mirror here. Sometimes it's good to lose that game and just, see you're very vulnerable to certain things and then tinker it before the season starts. Because I'll tell you, a team that has a lot of height is the New Orleans Pelicans, and that's who we play in the first game on December 23rd. And I'm very much looking forward to that. I think the Raptors can come away with a dub there, but they really need to look at themselves, work on these things in practice, work on actually getting to the rim, because they did not do that unless it was a full court offense against the Miami Heat. They were not creating plays to get themselves to the rim enough. 59 threes is not okay. 59 threes taken is absolutely not okay. And even though they hit 35% of them, which it's pretty good. It's pretty good, to be honest. You can't shoot that many threes and expect to come away with a lot of wins in the National Basketball Association. I'm always one, the more threes you shoot, likely the more success you're going to have, but it goes to a certain extent, and this crosses that extent that I give. So there's things to work on, but some things that you can look at that is promising for the season. One of those things being Malachi Flynn, another one of those things being transition offense and turning turnovers into points. So obviously, talked very negatively about the Raptors because I wasn't happy with their performance. I thought the score flattered them. Miami should have won by more than they did in the end, but the Raptors, only preseason game. We're going to move on into the regular season now. It's time to really fix these things and go on. What did you guys make of this final preseason game? What did you like? What did you not like? Let me know in the comments down below. Did you agree with me? Did you disagree with me? Let me know all your thoughts and opinions. But that wraps up from me for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still here, please like the video if you like, and subscribe to Amateur Sports for more content just like this. Again, NBA content with a focus on the Toronto Raptors in these vlog or video podcast style formats, whatever you want to call them. Just one little thing before I wrap up, I won't be available for the Monday video, so we're going to postpone that video to Tuesday. Just won't be able to get the recording done on that Monday, so one day late. You'll still get your normal 4 videos a week, just it'll probably be a weirder schedule than the normal Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. At the end of the day, I believe what I say. If you disagree, that is okay. Let's go Raptors. We got a game coming up on December 23rd.